Never mind. Flip. All right. Hi, Carl. So I'm gonna reboot. All right, so I'm changing floppy disks with this plectrum tonight because it's a disk emulator. I've got a bunch of images on there, and the only way I can get to the button is with a plectrum. So there's that. I don't have any working floppy drives in the house, but that's fine because it's 2019. Something's gone funny with the sound tonight. Maybe it's just on my end. So we're on the Amiga 500 Plus tonight, which is unusual. It's enormous. It takes up loads of space on my desk. It almost doesn't fit. It's hanging over the edge, and I like it well enough, but it doesn't do the trick that the 1200 and the 600 do, which is to put out all 4 channels on mono if you've only got one RCA plugged in, one phono jack plugged in. That's handy. This doesn't, so I've got to mix them both to mono, put them in here, because mono's where it's at. But we're going old school. Not entirely old school. 500 would be more old school, but 500 plus, it's old school enough. I've got a 500 somewhere, but it's in a bad way. This is not good. I'm going to rearrange this mic so it's not so scratchy. Yeah. You wouldn't think I'd do this for a living. Mic people up. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so and another thing, because I didn't have enough time to get myself organized today, this is an original version of Protracking 2.3D. You'll see it's not quite original. I've hacked it a bit. I've made some modifications and put a bit of my own logo in. But it's before all the bug fixes that 8-Bit Bubsy has done. So all the things I've been talking about for the past few weeks, all the bug fixes that came along 25 years later, are not in this. So it might crash, and that'll be fun. But we're also going to use the ST-01 sample disk that came with ProTracker, the earliest versions of Soundtracker by Karsten Obarski. I believe he put these samples together and maybe also did ST-02. There are loads of them now, provenance unknown for a lot of them. I don't know how many Karsten got up to. Maximum cheese is possible. I don't have to go down that route, but hey, I probably will. Yeah, I'm gonna dig out, well, okay, every time. So I have a floppy image that has a tracker on it, this one. I also have it as an actual floppy somewhere, but yeah. And then if I want to load modules, I've got another image that I have to switch to with the plectrum. And then if I want to load samples, I've got an ST-01 image that I put together earlier. So I'll switch to the, so I'm sorry about this, but I'll do a bit of poking around. There's a tiny OLED screen on the side of my USB floppy thing that tells me which disk image is loaded, and I can only see it if I do this undignified Hobbit crouch, this Gollum routine. What? No, that's not what I want. Yeah, okay, right. So now that's changed. No cheating by using tiny waveforms. What do you take me for? Some kind of chip musician? Also, this is all going to be real-time loading. This is not an accelerated Amiga. It does not have a compact flash hard disk in like the A1200 does. Everything happens slowly, and the USB floppy emulator emulates floppy so well that it emulates the speed of floppy too, the real-time speed of floppy. It'll even do the sound as well, but life's too short to hear all that crunching and grumbling. So it's a disc with a couple of tunes on. Funk Wit, that's what I mean. It's a chip tune. I think it's a chip tune. We'll find out. Let's have a look at the samples. Pretty chippy so far. All pretty chippy. And then some noise. What did I use that for? We'll find out. More chip. Oh, what a lovely kick drum that is. We have a proper drummer watching tonight, and I'm sure we'll be impressed with this high fidelity percussion. Use that for a bunch of things. Triangle waves, some kind of double inverted sort of thing. Another dunch. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so it's not exclusively tiny sample chip. Some other stuff going on in here. I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so I must have written this one for Sundown 2012. I won't be entirely sure which tune it is until I press play. That looks like it's just a lower volume version of that. There's probably a good reason for why I did that. Let's play it and see what's what. Oh yeah, this one. Various names, but I like funk timing because it's great for funk. So an entire column of effects through this whole track is sacrificed so that I can have speed commands changing every row between a slow speed F7 and a faster speed F5, which you can really. Now, AHX, if you mute the channel with the speed changes on, won't do the speed changes. I think Protracker will pass it anyway. Yeah, so at a straight speed, that would be. faster, it would be... Neither sounds particularly good, but juggle them around a bit and get a bit of funk on the go. So hey, that's that. That tune is 38 kilobytes, almost 39 kilobytes. That's not bad considering it's got a couple of heavy samples in. It's got a big fat bass. I'm not sure where I got that from. I might have stolen that from somebody. I'll think about that. And some pretty chunky SID samples for the kicks. They would take nowhere near the same space on a SID, in a SID chip, a SID tune. It would just be instructions for the SID chip, but here it's sampled. Might have been generated. Do you know? I might have done that in AHX and saved it out as well. I haven't stuck it in here. Anyway, all of that's immaterial because we're going to kill this. I did say I was going to talk a lot less tonight, and yeah, I'm going to talk a lot less tonight. I'm just going to do. So I won't be describing everything I do the way I normally do at length. We will come back to things if people want me to go over stuff in future weeks or whatever. But I thought it would be quite cool if I just blasted away, try to make a tune, see how far I get tonight with just for some artificial limitations using just the ST sample disk. So I'll have to get the plectrum out again. And so this is the disk where I found these tunes, or where I put these tunes. It's got a few other tunes on, some really quite tiny. It's 22K, still quite small. What else have we got? Hugs Do Bonkers. That's 13K, that's pretty tiny. Bonkers is a Swedish Amiga programmer. Amazing programmer. I think he lived in the UK for a while, and I think he's in the US somewhere now. I haven't seen him for years. He did me a big favour. I can't remember what the favour was, but I wrote him a tune, and this is it. It's crashed. Still playing. Yep, it's crashed. So, plectrum time. Be a bit of that tonight. Between 2.3D having quite a few bugs and this being an A500 Plus should be fine. Occasionally it's not. So the A500 Plus is an A500 with an ECS chip. That's the extended chipset, which is also in the Amiga 600. But the Amiga 500 Plus came out as a weird. I don't know if they were trying to shift stock of Amiga 500 motherboards by sticking ECS in, or if it's a new, I don't know. But it was a weird limbo for a lot of people. A lot of people found that their A500 games didn't work. It could do cool stuff, but nobody ever targeted that specifically with new software. I like it because it's here, but it looks pretty cute as well. Looks pretty good. Anyway, so hey, we're back in business, kind of. If this gets too bad, I'll quickly get a fixed version of Protracker under here, but I'd like to do it with all the original bugs. Yeah, so now plectrum again to get to the sample disk. ST-01. Okay, right, now fresh, nothing lying about in RAM, fresh reboot, disk up, and pretty straightforward. So I wonder if that assign is working. Oh, it is working properly because I labeled the disk correctly. So all we've got now is a big list of samples. We don't have mod to samp, which is an external program which I've used in the past on the stream for bouncing entire blocks of a pattern down to one sample. Well, it's quite handy for if you want to save channels. If you've got a complicated drum pattern playing on 3 channels, you could bounce that down to one sample, play it from one channel, and then you've saved 2 channels. None of that tonight. There are ways to get something similar, and we'll go through those again. But yeah, let's in with real-time floppy drive loading speeds, we'll listen to some of these samples. Nope, I'm not sure. It's not what I want to do. Flip. Well, that might have came the RAM. Hopefully not. Let's kill everything and start again. I do this every single time. Try to load a sample. Try to load a sample as if it's a module. It gets dumped into all the wrong bits of RAM. There's no protection against that. Even if you tell it no, it gives you the chance. It says, "Are you sure you want to load it?" And he says yes or no, and you say, "No, no, I'm not." And it says, "Nah, no, I didn't hear you. I'm going to do it anyway." So, fine. Now we're loading samples. Except we're not. Look, I've clicked load sample. Oh my god. I'm too soft. I've got used to Protracker 2.3e with all the fixes. Doesn't fix that, actually. Alright, plectrum again. This was broken all my promises. This was going to just be Bob Ross writing the tune. Everything relaxed, everything going well. It's all good. We'll get it back. This doesn't seem good. I'm just impatient. Yeah, okay. I can't reach those buttons, by the way, with my finger because of the way the case is. So that's what the plectrum's for. It's not like a it's not just how those things work. Right, so load sample. That's how we want to do things. We want to load things properly. We don't have that. We don't want to load a pattern. Switch it back. Sample. Right. Make absolutely sure that when it loads this, it's going to load a sample. Loaded sample. There we go. All right, we're in business. Some cheesy samples, and if you had an Amiga and knew anybody who had an Amiga, or anywhere near an Amiga between about 88 and now, you'll have definitely heard a bunch of these samples. Thousands and thousands of tunes were written with these samples because it was all people had. If they didn't have a sampler and they didn't have other discs of samples, then, and they got a copy of sound tracker, either paid for because it was commercial initially, or whereas and then got hold of a copy of Protracker later on, they would probably also be advised to get hold of a couple of ST discs, but definitely ST-01. I guess ST-00 was the disc that had sound tracker and a bunch of example patterns and things on, but samples I think start at 1. Gato. So that's weird. That's not all of the samples that should be in here. Let's try reading the directory again. I think I interrupted it doing a directory read before, and it takes a while, and I forget that it takes a while because it's reading the imaginary floppy disk. Which is actually like a 32 gigabyte USB drive. Yeah, that sounds right, yeah. ST-00 with Protracker itself. Probably the docs, probably the help doc. Maybe the replayer as source code as well, although probably not with sound tracker originally. I'm a bit hazy on some of that very fine detail history. Great, it's done a directory listing of the whole thing. So now we can see everything that you would have seen in 88, 89, well for me probably 91. We can start listening to some of these. Alien. Yeah. That's as high as we can go. I mean, already, like, yeah, that's a pretty cheesy sample, but already you think to yourself, well, Jesus, I mean, I could do something with that if I was going to make a game, or I wanted to make a demo that sounded like it was from a moody kind of sci-fi game, or already, just from hitting a few keys, you think, yeah. That's, before I go any further, let's downsample that. Oh, shit. That is what I wanted to do, but it's not how I wanted to do it. So it was the way. Yeah, so we'll downsample that. Yeah. More than a few people end up doing sound design for a living after messing around with samples on the Amiga. Like this guy. Right, I just ordered samples by ripping game mods with an action replay 3. Good man. That's the way to do it. Not all of those mods, not many of them were protected particularly. And even if there were, I think it was probably quite easy. You'd have, I'm guessing the action replay could go through and look for 8SVX file headers, and actually you wouldn't even need to do that because you can have raw samples in Protracker. You just need to go through the Protracker header, find the bit that tells you where, I think 1084 and onwards is where the sample data is. So if you look in the instrument section, you can find out the start address of every sample and how long it's meant to be, and you double that and you get the because it's 2 words, and you get, so that's pretty cool. Did that always work? How much luck do you remember having? I mean, some, just to fit them on disc, some games were probably like track disc with real custom formats, but I guess a lot of people just use straight up mods. I know, well, I was going to give an example, but it's an example where it was a Cena writing the music, Jaguar XJ220, amazing soundtrack, they're just straight up mods as far as I know, because Nuke of Anarchy got hired when he was, I think he was 16, to do the music for that and another game. Very nice. Some drums. Oh, Jesus. All these years, I don't think I've ever found a good use for this one. It's just too faddy. But you hear that all over the place if you load up a few demos. It's really jungly, kind of. But I'm not going to do any jungle tonight, I promise. Just that. Yeah. I'm playing them with a 2-row, it's like a 2-row organ manual here, keyboard mappings. In fact, I have, it's all the way over there, can't be bothered. I have an Amiga where I've painted black piano keys on some of these letter keys, so I could see it in the dark when I was playing live. So 2 octaves of that. And you've got 3 octaves in total, you change between them up here. You've always got 2 in front of you. I think it's probably time to start doing a tune. Oh, this is either great or terrible. I can't remember which. It's great. I knew it. Steinway. That's ambitious. Steinway harpsichord, maybe. Oh, that's nice. It's clipping just enough to make it really pop. Do something with that. So you load up something pretty simple like that, and there's a lot you can do with it. But rather than go through and just demonstrate those techniques, I'll just start making a tune and use them as I come to them if I need them. What happened there? I don't think there's a good filter sweep, a really good filter sweep on this entire disc, which is a shame. That's pretty good. I normally start by making a big pad. Start anything by making a big pad. I'm going to try and avoid doing that tonight. I wanted to see what that was because I can't remember. Yikes. Good Lord. Okay, so I'm going to start with this. Yeah, I'll start with that. Okay, so what have we got? You might as well get as much volume as you can without clipping. Speed, let's have 125 BPM ostensibly, though this is all relative, and I'll not get into that again. I can hold down C and do the whole pattern very quickly. Hold down, let's say 1, give it a bunch of C10. So now it sounds like this. Oops. Try that again. That's the whole thing. C's, 10s, oops. Yep. Now here's the thing, the magic thing that we learned a few weeks ago that a lot of people, even old school Protracker veterans, didn't know about, and I wasn't sure if it had been introduced recently because I didn't know about it either. But it's brilliant. It's a merge paste, basically. Control J, merge pastes all those in. We can delete the working copy that we had in channel 2 and track 2, and back in track 1 we've got this. A bit of very artificial but entirely characteristic track, a single pattern delay. I've shown you in other videos how you can either do it the ultra efficient compact way, which is this, or you can actually sacrifice 2 or even 3 channels to doing it, where every sample gets to play out, but the successive note taps, the echo, the delay taps come on different channels, play alongside each other. So as a little ostinato or slow up, I say slow up compared to the tracker ups that we're usually dealing with, that's a backbone for a tune. You get some drums in now. Still only got 1 sample, and the tune is 9 kilobytes. That's okay, and it's pretty much all that sample. And then I think it's not 1K for a pattern, is it? I'm trying to remember. It's 4 bytes per row. No, it's no. Anyway, that doesn't matter. It's still pretty small. Let's get some drums in. First sample. So you just have to have some faith that they're named helpfully. I thought I found some extra kicks down here. Maybe not. Got some bass drums up here though. Yeah. Yeah, that's demo as fuck. Right. Needs to be louder though. Needs to be a lot louder. Let's get the volume up as much as we can without clipping. Doesn't really matter if we clip a bit. Do you know what? We're going to clip a bit. Hey. Yeah. So let's get the note skip. Let's control and a number. Note skip up to 4. Or edit skip up to 4. Go into edit mode, and then there we go. And put those kicks everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, well, before I get too far into that and get some more samples on the go, some hi-hats. Good idea. Good idea to have hi-hats. Very popular choice amongst people with ears, whether they realize it or not. Some claps as well. Closed hi-hat. Oof, that's grim, but I'll use it. I don't care. I'll do something to it. Oof. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, I'll use both of those. It's good to have two hats. How's the typing? Is that really loud or tolerable? I mean, it's gonna sound like that no matter what. How do you add variations on repeated parts when a track doesn't not use the same system? Everything this plays is a note that you've typed in. So if you want a variation the second time around, you duplicate the whole pattern and you change the new one. And I'll show that. Or you can vary a 2-bar or a 1-bar pattern within the same phrase within the same pattern, where a pattern is a list of 64 lines. I'll show you that in a minute to get some drum variations on this. Let's get some snares in. Yikes. I think I might want to clap for this actually. Yeah, that's oof. That's quite good pitched up. Get that on. I did skip 8. Well, hey, we don't want to waste an entire channel because we haven't got polyphony in any of these channels. Of course, these are all mono channels. We don't want to waste an entire channel just on the drums. Let's see if we can pack this all into one place. So there are a number of ways to do that. The best way is just to mix a kick and a snare in a new sample. So that is sample 2, sample 5, and we want to mix them to sample 6. So let's get into the editor here, and I've forgotten how to do it. Mix, there it is. So I'll just say 2 and 5 to 6. That's what we're going to do. 2 or 5 to 6. Fingers crossed. When I say fingers crossed, I mean fingers crossed that it doesn't write to the wrong area of RAM and cane the whole thing. But it's usually okay. And it's jumped us straight to, yeah, I need to save. So there we go, it's a blend of the bass drum clap, but with the volume reduced a bit. I'm going to bump that up. As a vague guide, the volume of the kick is what I want to match it with, because that's going to be the most pronounced if every other kick is a slightly different volume. For the moment, do you know what? I'm just going to save this right in the ST-01 directory floppy, because why not? Alright, I need a name. I'm going to crowdsource the name of this tune. It is an audio when I don't save. Any ideas? Almost pressure. Save module. Audio flash. Too late, just missed it. But I'm filing that away for the future. No, I don't want to read the directory for modules. I'm not finished loading samples. Hey, so God almighty. The display does tell you which track of the imaginary floppy it's reading. It's on track 79. There we go. That's good. That means it's almost completely read. I'm gonna have to load this again, or else it's gonna cause me problems. Maybe it won't. Hey, at least I've saved it. So, yeah, now we've got none of that nonsense. Let's get sample 6 in. Delete all of these. Control K to zap the rest of that pattern. It's balanced out reasonably well. The levels just about right there. Cool. And then we can get some of these in. So the variation I'm going to go for in here is going to come from the closed hi-hats, which first I need to increase in volume a bit. It sounds pretty terrible, but I'm going to do boost, which gives you a slight high-end boost. It's good for adding a bit of fizz back into samples that have lost it through the downsampling process. That's not what I wanted to do. That's not right. It should be 4, 3, 2. Just busking it here. So a bit of variation. Can you play the channel solo, the drum channel? Yeah. Oops. All right. I wonder if this should maybe be a bit. What's it? 8C, give me 140. Yeah. That's better. Yeah. Right, let's get some bass up in here. That's what we need. Ooh, what a name for that. Let's see then. What we got? I want a bass. That's not what I'm looking for. I want something with a bit of filter envelope right at the front, right at the start. Not enough. Filter bass. Oh. Yeah, that might be enough to do what I want to do. This. Oh, sorry. Catching up on the comments. Cool. Actually, I'm not sure if the A500 can run in or my PAL one can run in NTSC timing. I'm not sure if the A500 Plus can. I think it can. I think it's an ECS feature. Well, for a start, that's sharp, so let's fine tune it down a bit. Cool, so like I said, we've left open quite a bit of flexibility for the exact chord progression and stuff that we're going to do here, but I'm going to put it all in on the offbeat. I'm going to start with just this A over and over a bunch of times. But that sounds a bit whack. I think you'll agree. So let's cut it off pretty quick, really quick in fact, with an EC2. That's one of the extra effects that cuts off 2 ticks into the row. And I'm not going to have another give another explanation of ticks and rows and timing. It's one of those things that I understand in my head. I can't articulate very well. Think for the moment of tick being a subdivision of a row. It's not the full story, but it'll do. I think will vary, in fact, will vary when that cut comes off. In fact, even better than that, will vary the length of the cut. If you go over the limit of the, yeah, that's, no, we better vary where the cut is, because at this speed we haven't got much range on the cut. There is a command just to delete the effect in one go, but I've never learned it. I was just zero it out. I'm too old to learn a new trick now. Okay, so that's starting. Is that like a fine-tuned note off? Yes, it is. So the length of a tick is dependent on when you change a low F speed, 0 to 8 or F or something, one of the old V blank, you're changing the number of 50ths per second that it takes for protracker to go past one row. So that's what those, and it's a division of that. So that's the old timing. New timing, CIA timing, uses a more standard abstraction for timing than just waiting for the V blank, which is when we talked about this last night for programming for graphics. But that's the gap you get between the photon beam in an old monitor reaching the bottom right and resetting back to the top left. It's not very consistent or accurate across different platforms and regions. So to get something closer to a BPM, CIA timing is a more modern way of doing it. I use a combination of both because then, in theory, you can kind of fix your BPM with one of the higher resolution F commands, and you can kind of juggle around the other F commands until you get what you want, which might not be the BPM you want, but might be the speed and feel that you want. The speed at which the notes go past not being necessarily the same as the tempo. So we could run this pattern really fast, but put the notes more spread out, and then all of our effects would have finer detailed resolution to operate in. So an EC2 is like a note cut. Normally a note cut is a C0 or a new note, some other note, to cut off the previous one. EC2 lets you cut off a note mid-row, unless the resolution is, unless the speed is so fast that you can't, that it's not worth it. So that waits, that command there, the EC2, this is drifted, sorry. The EC2 waits until 2 ticks into the following row and then cuts it out. When I did EC5, it didn't make any difference because we're at speed, maybe it did. Anyhow, I think you only get 4 ticks before it would just no longer be acting on that row anymore. I'm making this worse, but yeah, this is what it does. Anyway, you can hear what it does. Gives you a bit of control over when the note gets cut off, which is quite handy. But the other thing we're going to do, remember I said I wanted a filter sweep or some kind of filter envelope at the start of the notes. I want these. If I play this from a few different points by doing a show range and then a play range, flip, never mind, show all. Okay, if I do a play range, if I start from that offset, I catch it at when the filter cutoff is closed quite a bit. If I started at this range, this offset, it's open a bit more. This offset, even more. If I start it at the beginning, I get that little bit at the start. So if I alternate my offset in between this sort of area, and we've discussed this in the past, but let's have a look again. The sample editor in the third edit window gives you a pretty good. This isn't intentional, I don't think, but it's a nice way of finding out, other than guesswork. If you want to do an offset command, look at this number, the position. That gives you the position of where you've clicked the mouse in the sample, where that line is. And if you chop off the last 2 hex digits there, hex characters there, the 2 at the front are the ones you need to give you a division. So it gets less accurate the longer the sample is, but on a shortish sample, it's pretty good. And we can, I think we're looking in the area of between 8, 6 and 2. 8, 6, 2 and 0 will give us a bit of variation here on the filter cutoff of the bass. So I'm going to start the 9 command. I'm going to start with nope. Maybe we'll start with 6, then go to 8. So already it's starting to sound like maybe there's a sample and hold filter, or sample and hold oscillator operating a filter on here and a synth. And we've got complete control. It's fiddly, but we've got complete control over how we want that to sound, which is kind of nice. I'll keep it low to begin with. I'll just run that as it is. Yeah, it's all right. I'll copy that whole first half. What am I doing? Paste it. Copy the wrong thing, or it didn't copy properly. It's highly irregular. One way to get around sample limitations, cram them all into one sample as long as length isn't exceeded. Yeah, and we've looked at that in the past. We will unpack a few, especially a few of Hoffman's mods to see that in action. We've looked at a few mods in past streams where either the bass and the drum have been packed for polyphony purposes, or to get around that, or usually if you run out of samples, 31 sample limit. But you've still got disk space, or you've still got sample length space, especially on the fixed versions of the replayer that will deal properly with 127 kilobyte samples like we've talked about last night. Then yeah, you can use the offset to as long as you've got the effect slot spare, then you can use the offset to save soaking up your sample slots. If this tune gets to the point where I'm running out of sample slots, we'll put that into practice. But for now, let's see how that slightly filtery bass, which I think you'll agree has changed in feel quite a lot. Let me still got that nasty click at the front. I'm not sure if I want to get rid of that. I think I'll cut through the mix quite a bit, actually. Leave it where it is. It is, yeah. Oh, the offset almost. I think it's just where the maybe the whole thing is not DC. Mess around, see if I can get those. I haven't got a great deal of resolution down here, unfortunately. I mean, what I could do is chop a bunch of the sample off. I'm kind of using the back end of it though quite a bit. Yeah, that'll be worse on the 500 plus, I think, than the 1200. I think, but it's okay in the mix. I'm gonna get that a bit, yeah, a bit louder. Clipping a bit, don't care. Cool. So yeah, it's starting to form the basis of something cheesy, but something nonetheless. Oh God almighty. Right, there's an option called auto dire, which stops this from happening. You would never disable that option on an Amiga 1200 or anything that could read directories fast from a hard disk. But I realise now it would be quite handy to have turned that off here, reading floppies. I'll turn it off when this is finished. Oh my god, this is hopeless. You're not missing much down at the bottom of the screen there, but it's a lot cheaper than getting a capture card, and there's less lag for me. Ah, it's done. Hey. Right, let's get that option changed or die off. Right, so at least for the rest of this session, that won't be quite so painful. Need something else, so is nowhere near cyberpunk enough. That's what we need. Yeah, that's more like it. Let's have another one on the end there for the crack. It doesn't help that I'm tapping my foot as well compulsively, which causes quite a bit of cam shake, I'm sure. I don't normally use the transpose keys in Protracker. I normally just do it all by hand because I'm just paranoid of hitting the wrong thing and zapping everything. So I'll do that now. Let's kill that just in case there's ever another pattern preceding this that doesn't chop its audio off properly. So we'll just put a C0 note off at the start of this channel. I might want my phrase to be a bit longer, to be 2 patterns, but for now that'll do. Let's get in some kind of filthy synth. Back to the sample mines. Maybe we've got away with it. All the paths are the same, so if you run Snoop DOS while you run Protracker, you'll see that it's just doing standard Workbench or standard Kickstart library directory changes and path loads and stuff like that. There's nothing particularly magical going on. So if the directories and paths haven't changed, then you shouldn't need to reread the directory as long as you know it's there and you know that it hasn't changed. Thank you. The bass is sounding decent, I think. I'm gonna have a quick drink. Excuse me. So there's loads of synth sounds in here. Don't remember this. Hell's teeth. I've done it again. So it's trying to load a sample as a mod. Says, are you sure? Of course I'm not sure. I don't want to do this. I'm going to click no, and it's going to do it anyway. Thanks for that. Out of memory, big surprise. Normally you'd need to reboot after this. It's still not finished, ruining my life. Let's try and load it in again. It might be okay. If it's not, we'll know when it crashes unexpectedly. Well, we're back for now. Load the sample, so I do have to do another directory read just to be on the safe side. Honest to God. Let's do it again. What am I missing here? Change it to load sample. This might be something that 8-Bit Bubsy fixed, and I'm used to it already. Jesus, why would I want to load a disk as a module? What the hell have I done? Maybe that order dir option doesn't work the way I thought it did. I'm determined to keep caning the memory here. It should just it should clear it all when I do a clear in theory, but there's usually something left lying around. Right, well that's obviously not doing what I thought it did, so I'm going to get rid of it. Load this once again as a module. Brilliant. Brilliant, it's just stuck all the samples into one, because now it's loading as a fucking sample. I did spend a lot of time when I was younger on Protracking 3.15, which does things slightly differently, and I get quite easily confused, even now sometimes. Samples. Alright. You would think, now that I've clicked load sample, it might ask me to click a sample. Select sample. There we go. Well, that's horrible. That was not worth the wait. It's not horrible. It's not appropriate for our purposes. I used to. Don't you prefer the medium res display in Protracking 3.15? I used to. It was handy. Protracking 3.15 did a couple of cool things. It had promise that wasn't always fulfilled, like it didn't have the waveform or the filter drawing that I'd quite have liked. It did do fixed DC offset bias. That was handy. This doesn't. 2.3 doesn't. But it was full of bugs. It was full. It had loads of loop, sample length and loop bugs. They were just showstoppers after a while. I couldn't get much. I got a lot done in it, but I couldn't rely on it. I had too many evenings of tracking where I just sacked it off because it crashed so many times. Not like tonight, of course. This is all part of the fun. That's grim. It's really quiet. That might do what we want. Rog B, I always wonder why people don't seem to like Protracking 3 compared to 2. That's why, pretty much. In many ways, it was there were a lot of steps forward in it, but I don't think any of them really outweighed the the incompatibilities introduced with some replayers, and just the fact that you can end up in memory no man's land with the loop points, and just if you hadn't saved for a minute or two, that was a reboot before you could get back. And even then, that sample might never quite behave the way you wanted it to in that tracker again. Well, there's 3.62, which I also use quite a lot. Now I can't remember why. I always used to have the two running. I always used to have the two close to hand, and there was a reason. 3.15 is a bit more stable, I think, even than 3.62. But 3.62 had some feature that was really handy. I can't remember what. One of them had built-in mod to samp. Maybe it was 3.62. You had to have it installed, but it would do that in the background and dump it in a sample. But you fix one thing, you break something else. That's the way. Let's get this louder before we do any processing on it. Let's get it quite a bit louder before we. That's not looping very nicely, but crossfade, a bit of loop point wiggling. Get it just about all right. We've lost a bit more volume with the crossfade, and I might have to abandon this if I think it's too noisy. Should really have tracked my sample loop points at a higher pitch. If you can get them all right at a higher pitch where it's going to be more noticeable. Mod 2 Samp, is that like your mix feature you demonstrated? No, it's quite a lot fancier than that. It's a separate program, or it was a separate program, and on my 1200 I use it as a separate program. There's an optional GUI for it. It lets you load the mod, lets you tell it how many rows of which channel or how many channels you want, but usually you want to get, you can get it to respect or not muting state, which wouldn't make it because you don't save mutes with the module. That must be internal. There are switches for that. So you can say, yeah, I want channel 1, 2, 3 for the first 8 rows of this module turned into an 8 SVX sample. Save it here and go back to Protracker, load it. Suddenly you've bounced not only the samples, but also all the effects, everything. You know, it's a recording of the output when that sample's played through a replayer. So if you want to turn an 808 kick drum into a nice big bass with a pitch slide just on the tail of it, then you can do that really easily with Mod to Samp, because you can record that pitch down, and then you don't have to waste effect commands in Protracker on doing the pitch down in the tracker every time. You could bounce whole huge amounts of stuff to one sample and save a lot of channels, save a lot of effects commands. But a lot you can do in here. That mix is one example. That is literally just mixing the samples at different pitches. So if you mix something, if you mix 3 notes with an octave range and maybe a third on top, one of those notes will finish a lot earlier than the other notes. So the usable, if you're trying to make a pad, the usable length will be as short as the highest pitched note. So ideally, wouldn't it be nice if you'd multi-sampled the original note in the first place at 2 octaves? So, but that actually wouldn't work, because I think. Sorry, I'm talking about chord. Chord's another thing. Chord's where you've got one input sample and you choose the pitches that you want to mix at, and it mixes you a new sample. I don't think I did that before, but I'll do that soon. Mix is one that just blends 2 or more samples together. Or if it does 2, then you can do it again with a third sample. Keep going. I'll do a chord in a minute, a pad. I'm just imagining it. I'll full screen on this, and you can watch me through. turn it down so that I wouldn't be humming all over the place. So mic down. God, that sounds. Oh, maybe it's because I've killed the. I feel like I need a little lighter synth going on here. Find one of those ones that I went at earlier and stick it in. I mean that's cheesy as hell, so that might just be just the ticket. I've used this a lot. Now, do a remap. I don't normally do this. I'm going to try it. 8, 9. And if it fails horribly, then you can learn from my experience. That should exchange either the samples or the sample data. I think the sample data. Doesn't really matter which. Yeah, it did. I mean, this melody won't last long anyway, but that did not add dignity to it at all. Let's upsample it. So what we need that just isn't here, and I'm ashamed of myself for not sticking it in, is I'll know it when I hear it. It's in here somewhere. It's not this. It does not sound dangerous. Maybe if you pitch it down. Still doesn't sound very dangerous. I've heard dangerous and that, isn't it? That's quite nice. Not what I'm after. What sample was used in the game Viper? Which sample? The one that I said that's nice, or the one that I said probably the one that I said that's nice. That's pretty good. Oh yeah, that's nice. Now, actually that would be a good, I wonder if we can demonstrate the chord with that. It's not what I was looking for, quite what I was looking for, but that's a real UKG string hit. Okay, let's try that. It's good. You have to get an idea of which notes you actually want to stick in here, because you can't hear them when you're typing them in. So we'll do that. So remember from one of the early streams, if you were with us back then, if you were protracking with Syphus, we've got these weird options here. You change that option there, where my mouse is, that N, you change that by, not by clicking it, don't be silly, you change it by clicking here on the bar, and it changes contextually depending on which of these 3 or 4, because we're now in the 4th secret edit window, which only appears for chords. You can add length. That just, I think, adds dead space in the end of the sample. I don't think it's much use. You got a lot of presets for different triads here. Well, no, the 4 notes. So I've never used them. I don't trust them. So I don't know what they do. I'm not sure what undo does either. I don't trust undo in this either. So yeah, 0. We got O and N. O means original and N means new. New means it'll find a new sample slot and put the resulting sample, the mixed sample, in. O means original, it'll overwrite your original sample. You probably don't want to do that. It doesn't matter for us now, but that's worth knowing before you ruin something. You press chord. It says, are you sure? Are you sure to make a chord? Well, it's basically asking, are you sure you want to wait for the Amiga 500 Plus to make your chord? It might not take that long. That was pretty quick. Pretty quick, I'm sorry. I wanted a big orchestra hit. This is not it, but this is fun. Let's get back to our I'm also never quite sure what the root note is going to be. I think it's still based around C3 or whatever your sampling note is down at the bottom. You might not be able to see that, but down at the bottom is there. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, it's absolutely not the sound I need for this bit, but that's how you would do it. And it's probably a good idea to cut some of that away, then to do a fade down to get rid of some of that aliasing. Doesn't sound that much better, but hey, it'll get lost in the mix. That's the mantra for coming to terms with low sample rate and bit rate in Protrack. Not only will it get lost in the mix, it'll often add to the mix in ways that your conscious mind can't quite understand. Bypasses your consciousness entirely. Same as mastering high-end distortion is used. I talked about this last night in high-end production. Sorry if I've gone all whispery. I was looking for a sample, wasn't I? It's taking a lot longer than... One day I will just bash through a sample, chiptune, and it'll happen really quickly. But I keep getting sidetracked with awesome surprises here. Alright, where the hell's this nightmare? There is an orchestral crash in here somewhere, I'm certain of it. Of course, that's a pizzicato. Jesus. That was weird. If anybody knows what the crash, the big crash was called, let me know. That's tasty. Used that before. The egg, of course. It's been a while. The egg. What is it? Am I imagining it? Please help. TikTok. This is fun, isn't it? Thanks for joining me. Right, clearly I'm losing it and it doesn't exist. I've got a banjo right here, right behind me. If it comes to that, don't worry, I wouldn't do that to you, but I always keep a banjo within arm's reach. Yeah, I can't find this. And I think now that I've made it up and that it never existed. What else have I imagined? Sorry, I should explain, I can't look at the page because if I open Chrome on the streaming machine, it will melt and my house will burn down. That's the kind of knife edge performance we're talking about here, as long as OBS is running 3 webcams at once. Yeah, but I'll take a look. Outlaw, I mean, that sounds good. So I'm going to load that and keep it in. We'll use that as an intro or something later on. To start, and so typically I would sketch out a couple of patterns, and the copy hole pattern is hopefully Alt F4. Let's copy and paste. Fingers crossed. Always play the target pattern to make sure you're actually going into the target pattern, because it might not have, unless you do a play song, it might not have changed properly. Pitfalls. Alt F5 should paste it in. Go to duplicate. I'm going to kill that melody that's probably going to get killed anyway. I'm going to zap the whole thing. I'm not happy with it, so let's go on. What instrument is that? 7. Why am I doing that? I'm not trying to mark a block, I'm trying to... Yeah, so maybe this thing will operate on a one pattern phrase. Yeah, okay. Which one's probably worth copying that and pasting it in over here. Sample's too complex to do that little semitone up trick that I sometimes do. Going to take more time than I have tonight to get that behaving the way I want. Chopping out chunks and reversing them and looping them and all sorts of things. Can't be bothered. Feeling any of these melodies. That's okay because sleep on it and think of something else. But we've got a basis for a track here that I'll come back to, I think, occasionally as we go through Protracking with Syphus. I don't want to concentrate on any one thing for too long, but also I don't want to leave things behind. And it'd be fun to have something to keep coming back to. So I try to make this not too dusk poppy, but to keep it a bit cheesy, but to also get it a little bit cyber industrial, for a very caricaturized value of cyber industrial. Oh right, this shouldn't work. The sample's a bit too complex. Sounds weird, which is good enough. Let's syncopate that a bit. And let's just duplicate that a bit. Yeah, okay. I'm going to save this, which I should have done a while ago. Save module. Are you sure? Yep. Saving that module. Oh, hey, we got something done on an Amiga 500 with an old. Oh, for fuck's sake! Of course it is. So that's okay because I've got a plectrum. So I have to wait for it to read the entire disk again. Or maybe I'll just change it. Yeah, I'll just change it. It's not even a real disk. You must replace ST-01. Fucking hell. So used to not having to deal with this stuff anymore. I don't want to annoy it. So let's save my tune. Right, we good? Yeah, we're good. Okay. Scratch disk. Now let's have a look at the paths again. Scratch disk. A few tunes in there. I'm going to save this module. There's loads of space. Shouldn't be a problem. The tune's 53K, 53.7K. And I said earlier on that an ST-01 disk with all the samples in has about 50K spare. So we just went over. But save now. And I hate that. I hate that. I'll do something else there. What it might need is for me to go back and change that arpeggio on the first track. That might be holding this back. It's not particularly exciting or original, and I'm not feeling it. I am feeling the bass, however. I'm quite pleased with that. I seem to have lost my little fast cuts there. Maybe I didn't put them in. I normally would in a pattern like this. Let's see. 7. So that's what I'm on about. So that Windows 8 rows down at the bottom. 21, 56. Is it G that ends on? Yeah, it is. No, it's going to be 4 in the end. That's it. Have I ever found the scopes useful? I mean, how dare you suggest that anything in Protracker would be purely cosmetic? I mean, they're a pretty good way sometimes of telling you what's going on, not for any kind of analytical purposes, but sometimes it's handy to, especially if you're listening to an jungle module or something like that, where you might want to know which channel is that big, very visually obvious sine wave coming out of. But I mean, you probably, if it's your tune, you probably know that anyway. I'm not sure why it's displayed now, because my version of 2.3e has my own custom graphics in here. I can put the spectrum analyzer on, and that's fairly cosmetic as well. That's not by any means a spectrum analyzer. Last night we talked a lot about VU emitters and fake VU emitters. Not a lot. I try to spare you a lot of the detail. But spectrum analyzer is kind of fake as well, because without any awareness of what the actual pitch of a note might be, because that's all abstracted depending on the sample rate and the pitch at which you played it in, at the sample rate you recorded at. So it's immaterial. Like, you play an A on here, it could be anything in terms of the sound you hear. But the spectrum analyzer gives you, it goes off Protracker note pitch, not real world recognizable frequency, audible frequency. But for the most part, if you've got bass notes that are being played in lower octaves and tenor treble notes that are being played in higher octaves, like most conventional tunes would be in theory on paper, but not in the real world, then the spectrum analyzer might give you a visual representation of when something low is playing and when something high is playing. But your ears are doing that pretty well too, usually. So you can see that that's kind of averaging. It's given a bar height and 1 or 2 on either side around a note. So a Protracker period, which is the note, which is scaled into this this width division of bars. So it's completely useless. If you played a single breakbeat through that, you wouldn't see the bass frequencies of the kick drum represented down here and the hi-hats represented up here. You would just see the note that was triggered on popping up and down, maybe just once for the trigger and then not again. And so you can see how it's scaled across the keyboard there. It looks amazing though. It's cycling the copper list. Probably it doesn't look anywhere near as amazing, I'm afraid, on this shitty webcam. But I've got a really nice copper list fade from pink to blue going on there. Very tasty indeed. In fact, because the frame rate's so poor on this webcam, the only way to see it is probably for me to go to setup and show you my color config. Just in here somewhere. There it is. And let the camera adjust to the light, which it may never do because it's a really bright LED. But yeah, maybe you get the gist. It looks really, really vaporwave in here. I was doing it long before vaporwave. So yeah, the answer is no. But they do give the Amiga something pretty to do. I mean, I'm curious to know how it works, and I will dig into the assembly to see how you get that. It would be a fun thing to put in a music disc. I'm not sure how you tap the outgoing sample frame before it goes to polar, or read it out of RAM at the same time as port. I don't understand what's going on there, but I'd be curious to know sometime. And yeah, so Rob's, I never found either of them useful. I take your point about it giving you some cues about what is happening, etc. Yeah, I don't know if I'd be able, if pressed, I don't think I could nail down exactly how it was or has been useful to me. I think sometimes if you're getting your system set up and you're thinking, like, press play, I'm sure I should be hearing something, and it's sometimes good for error checking or whatever. But you got the view meters on the screen as well. They're optional, but I've always got them on. Yeah, I mean, I'm not usually looking at my notes as they travel down the screen. I just realised I've only got 2 view meters shown here. Oh, it's because I've got the other 2 channels muted. Yes. Whew, it's late. Right, I'll kill that melody with fire and put something else in there next time. Although next time we might do something slightly different. I'm not sure what yet. Still haven't done a straight up chip tune where I just sit down and do it without talking, which is kind of what I promised tonight. But no, there might be one. There's one somewhere on that disc that I did the last time I was testing this 500 plus to make sure it worked. I did the whole thing in kind of a few minutes, because if you're not trying to be original or interesting, you can just smash one of those out really quickly. And it was really just to get a feel for the keyboard and stuff. It's not my favorite Amiga keyboard. They vary quite a bit. I like my 1200 keyboard. I always used to like my Amiga 600 keyboards, but they're probably not the best, really. Right, gonna put this out of its misery for now. Take the bag of holding out here, which contains all the imaginary floppies. Put that on a shelf, and yeah, we're done. Good night. Thank you very much for watching. It's been an adventure again. We've listened to a lot of cheesy samples and had some nostalgic times and all the rest. Yeah, okay. Glad you enjoyed them. Thank you very much. I'll keep doing them as long as anybody at all is interested and see me messing around with Protracker and associated things. Oh, by the way, next time I've got this working again. I've got the sound working for this, so we can do have another look at oh, see, oh geez, we haven't quite got the sound working. You can hear that, but I can't. You can hear Amiga Pal playing, so I solved one bit of that problem, but I didn't solve the problem of mine not being able to hear it. Just still can't. So, okay, forget it. I haven't solved that problem. I will do. Spaghetti rat's nest of loopbacks and rooting and fighting with OBS. Anyway, it's been nice. It's almost made up for missing the show tonight. All of Liquid Swords being performed live. That would have been something. But hey, Amigas have got to be played with. Pros have got to be tracked. So thank you again. See you next time. Bye bye.